Film Rage presents Verbal Masturbation with Bryce and Jim. This week we are chatting with the writer and director of Riceboy Sleeps, Mr. Anthony Shim.
Welcome, Anthony. How you doing?
I'm very good. That was an awesome intro.
You know, we the first one we did, it kind of shocked the person, and we're like, okay, we got something here.
yeah, this is great.
So, welcome all the way from Vancouver, and we could not be happier to be talking to you today, as your film will be playing at our favorite festival, Calgary International Film Fest. But usually what we do when we like to break in directors on our show, we like to play a little game called Or.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you a question, this or that, so that our listeners get to know a little bit about you before we start talking about you and your movie. So being as how you're from BC, is it Canucks or the Lions?
Neither.
Fair enough.
That is also a fair question. You're the only person in the plethora of people that we've interviewed that has ever said neither. But that's I'm happy that you are our first. We've broken you in. Okay.
Grizzlies. My answer is Grizzlies.
There
Oh,
you
that's actually the right answer.
Yeah.
Okay. Bong Joon-ho or Park Chan-wook?
Oh, why would you do this to me?
Because
That's hard,
Bryce
right?
and I fight each other about this question, so we're trying to
Jesus.
decide who's actually more right, me or him.
Like, are you asking me to choose like their filmography?
No,
or
it's
like them
just
as an
that or
individual?
that. It could be because one's
man.
better looking in your mind. It could be because one, is got more wives than the other. Whatever the or is for you,
man.
you have to make a decision, and you can't say both.
Oh man, that's so tough.
Isn't it?
Old Boy is like hands down my favorite
That's-
film of all time.
It's awesome.
That's Bryce's favorite movie too.
Yeah. But Memories of Murder, I think, is like just one of the greatest films ever made. And also Mother, I love so much. Oh man, this is so hard.
Isn't it?
I'm gonna go with.
You can do it. They won't be offended.
That's so. Oh man, like by like the slightest margin. Fuck. Bong Joon-ho. No.
All right. It's okay.
No,
You're
you
safe.
said it.
It's done. I win.
Oh, that's so hard.
Okay.
Park Chan-wook.
This one's going to be easier for you, though. Hot pot or barbecue?
Oh, come on. Barbecue, let's go.
There you go.
There you go. See, I know we'd follow up the tough one with an easy one.
Yeah.
Horror or sci-fi?
Horror.
Okay. That's also the right answer for our podcast. And then the last one, Japan or Mongolia?
What the fuck kind of question is that?
I know, right?
Japan or Mongolia? Oh man, you're gonna get me in trouble.
No, it's perfect.
You know, there's a lot of Korea Japan tension.
I know. That's why.
Always.
That's why I asked both, because they both had issues for Korea in the past. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a good one to choose. And it could be the food, it could be the culture, it could be how cold you like to be, could be whether or not you like tsunamis or not.
That's so. Oh man, this is the worst question actually. I'm gonna. You know what? Can I explain my answer?
Yes, of course.
I don't-
It's you, man. It's all you.
Just to try to create peace around the world, I want to say Japan, mainly because of my undying love for Hirokazu Koreeda.
Oh,
Nice.
that he is my second favorite director of all time.
He's pretty good.
He's number 2 for me, and not
Who's
number
number one?
2 in the bad way. Number
Yeah.
2 and my second favorite.
Who's number 1, Jim? He's curious.
Oh, it's David Cronenberg because I'm Canadian. So
That's not a bad number 1.
yeah, I know. Body horror.
It's all right.
It's a thing.
So, how do things go at TIFF?
Amazing.
Yeah.
It was life changing. It really was life changing. My career, my professional career, and my personal life, just everything just changed drastically. And the film was really well received. I won the platform prize, which I didn't actually think I would win.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So it was so surreal and exhausting and overwhelming, but it's incredible. The people at TIFF could not have been kinder and more generous to me and my film, so it's great.
Well, it's apparently that it's worth the praise, right? So if right, I mean, these are the things you've now got to start getting used to in your.
I suppose.
As a second film, right?
Yeah.
I noticed in watching your film Daughter, because I watched that, I hadn't seen it before, that you used Canadian currency. And in Riceboy Sleeps, you also kept it in Canada. And we watch a ton of films, and a lot of Canadian directors spend a lot of time trying to pretend they're in another country. So first off, kudos to you for making Canadian content, keeping it in Canada. Is this something important to you? Is this all conscious decisions for you?
Yeah, I mean, the story took place in Canada in my mind and on paper, so it didn't, because it did come up, with Daughter, whether we would want to use American currency or not. And I just thought, well, why are we? I mean, they are two different countries, after all, and I just didn't think that. Well, it just didn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
This is Canada, so let's use Canadian currency. And we're shooting in Vancouver. Let's play Vancouver as Vancouver. Let's not try to hide signs or hide license plates. Let's just play.
Yep.
Because this story could very well take place in Vancouver. So why not? And then with Riceboy Sleeps, it was it's based on my childhood, and I grew up in BC.
Yeah.
So it didn't make sense for me to try and make it be Seattle or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's good. It's true though. I'm glad to see that. I'm glad that you can't consider it any other way. It's like people have this assumption that Americans don't want to watch movies about other English-speaking culture, right? And we already saw Parasite made a difference finally in the rest of the world, that they see Korean cinema as something that's amazing that we've known on Film Rage all our lives, right? So, yeah, kudos to you. We appreciate that, because to me, we should be proud of Canadians and Canadian directors like yourself. So yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, and if I make a film that takes place, if I write a script that takes place in America, I'll go shoot it in America, and same with South Korea or anywhere else in the world. But if I'm going to continue to make films in Vancouver, I'm going to set it in Vancouver.
Yep.
Nice.
Because we have so much that's visually, visually cinematic.
Yeah. Probably the most beautiful city in the world. So.
Yeah, there's a reason why so many people come shoot stuff up here. So
yeah,
it just seems crazy not to.
I personally think that they should call it Vancouver South when they're talking about Hollywood, as opposed to Vancouver is Hollywood North. That's my opinion, but
Nice.
So you've now written and directed 2 pretty heavy dramas. Is this your preference, or do you see yourself making different types of films in the future?
I definitely will be exploring other genres, I suppose. I'd like to.
Yep.
When I started writing Riceboy Sleeps, I was writing what I hoped would be a comedy with some heartfelt moments.
Right.
And then throughout the drafts, it landed where it landed. And honestly, I didn't think it was as heavy or as sad as people are taking it. Everyone's like, oh my god, like I was crying like so much, and
Oh, I'm gonna talk more about that later
Yeah.
in our interview.
And I'm going like, I'd ask my producers, I'm like, I didn't think it was like, did you guys think it was gonna be this sad? And it was like, I never thought this movie was like that. So, there's my intention, and there's what the actual final product turns out to be. So, the hope is that I will make things that touch on other genres, and you know, I suppose they might end up being heavier, a lot of times because I am drawn to subject matter um, that is relevant to the human experience, things that are challenging going on in society nowadays. So I don't know, if I see some really funny, good news on TV that I get excited about, then maybe I'll write lighter stuff. But for right now, that's kind of where I'm at. But like I really loved comedy. Like I've been wanting to write like a love story for a while. I've been messing around with that, and I've written some comedy stuff that never got made. But those are definitely, to me, comedy and drama. It's just a thin line.
It
like,
is.
It's
Yeah.
one or the other. It's so similar.
The
So
best dramas have so much humor in them.
Yeah. Yeah. To break the
Exactly.
tension, right? To break the tension.
Yeah.
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 Well, you'll get that comedy. If you can direct drama that well, right? That thin line you'll cross over. Eventually, you'll make that same movie, but it'll be funny instead of one of the most dramatic films ever made.
So do you find that a little shocking that sometimes you write something down, you film it, you think it's going to be received in a certain way, and a majority of the audience sees it completely maybe different than what you maybe intended, but it's still okay that they received it that way?
Yeah, I mean, there's an idea of what I'd like the audience to feel and think from, certain bits of the film. But at the end of the day, how one perceives it is it's entirely up to them. It's their subjective experience. So, I just try to accept it as it comes. For example, there's a scene fairly early in the film that involves a teacher and suggesting certain things, and I wrote that because I thought it was funny.
Is that because you
I just-
lived it? You felt it was funny now in hindsight?
Probably, but I just thought it was so absurd in
Right.
hindsight. So I go like, oh, it's this kind of like absurd scene where she's suggesting these names, and then it cuts to the next scene, which also I thought was quite funny. And so I was trying to keep it all fairly light, And then there's a scene also where the protagonist is touched in an appropriate way at her work. I thought that was funny. Like not the part where the guy does the action, but her
Yeah.
reaction.
Yeah.
Of like, I grew up with my own mother, and certain aunts of mine are pretty tough ladies, and like that kind of, when they behave in a certain way and say certain things, I think it's funny, and so yeah. Once again, it's like there's a certain response that I'd like to have, and sometimes I go for it, and it just doesn't quite land that way. But it doesn't, as long as it doesn't take away from the viewing experience, then
No.
Absolutely.
then that's fine.
It definitely didn't. It added to it for sure. So the casting in this, first off, the actors were amazing, and I thought you did a really good job of, and I apologize if I mispronounce it, but Dong Hyun's character as the younger one and the older one. It's not very often you see a transition like that the character seems so natural. Sometimes, like we've seen other movies where it's like, okay, that kid, there's no way that person is that person, but they had similar mannerisms, they had a similar look to them, so you did a really amazing job there. And with Choi Sang-yoon, like isn't that her first role she's ever done?
It was her first audition she'd ever done.
Wow.
What? How did you find her, and where did she come from? She was amazing.
Yeah, it was not an easy find. It took months of active searching across North America, all through Korea. And I just couldn't find the right actor for the role. It was, it had to be so specific when it came to look, age, ability to speak Korean and English, just the right amount of both. Someone who could play a believable young mother and an older mother as well. And have that right kind of sensitivity and vulnerability while she can still kick ass if she needed to.
Yeah.
And yeah, we had a really difficult time finding someone. And at one point, I was discouraged enough that I thought I might not be able to make this film.
Wow.
And we just kept searching. And then our casting director in Korea, she said, I know this dancer. I saw her in this documentary about dancers that Yoon had made, and she goes, I think you should see her. She's not an actress, but I think she could be, and there's something about it that's really special. What have I got to lose? And so they sent a tape over, and it was just like, boom, that's it. I really don't want to cast someone who's never acted before, but I think we got to take a chance on it because she was just so right, and of course of course through the whole shoot she was amazing, and her performance in the final product is what it is because she was so right for the part. And same with Noel, our little one.
Yeah,
first acting job ever. He's not even an actor.
He is now.
Yeah, he is now.
Yeah.
It was, oh man, incredible. You did a great job in that. Or your team did. That was fantastic.
Yeah, we just got so lucky finding these incredible human beings that could portray these characters with so much depth and honesty. Yeah.
Oh, good writing.
Very lucky.
Good writing helps, I think.
I try.
On that note, so you act, you direct, you write. Do you have a preference, or you just love them all?
Whatever
pays you money.
Yeah.
Keeps the roof over the head.
Yeah, I love whatever
on.
I'm not doing at that time, I suppose. I've been an actor my whole life, pretty much, and I'll always love acting. I love the craft of acting. I despise the career of an actor, for me, just because it was filled with so much rejection and waiting and so many pointless, auditions and whatever else I would do. But I love the actual act of doing that job, and but writing and directing is, I think, one of the most special things that one could do with his or her life. It's an incredible process. If you're fortunate enough to do it, it's just such a huge privilege. And so I would like to do that for as long as people allow me to.
Nice. Well, we're happy that you continue. That's for sure. Now, in doing research on you, there's like nothing about you online. Like, is this intentional?
I was gonna say, like,
what research? There's nothing. There's literally nothing about, like, you go on IMDb. You search Mr. Google and friends, and there's like literally nothing about you. I was like, is this intentional? Like, do you not want anybody to worship you from afar like we do here on Film Rage, or is it like you're just too busy doing all these things that you don't have time to go online and make a good bio under Wikipedia?
I just figure I'll let the work speak for itself. My bio is not that interesting, so
I don't know about that. If Riceboy Sleeps is telling your story a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I try to tell my bio through a film like this. I was just a theater nerd. That's all I did. I spent my late teenage years and my 20s in black box theaters. That's the majority of my time spent doing theater and writing and directing, producing stage stuff. And I kind of have this fear of having information about me online.
Okay,
and
from
the
like you're
photos
afraid of
online.
what people are gonna do with it, or what?
I don't know. I guess I really value my privacy, and
Okay, well that's
I've never
that's
wanted to
respectful.
voluntarily put my information out there.
Yeah. Well, certainly
Um,
you're not gonna post your mailing address and your phone number, but
No, no, but I mean, there's just so many ways that people can get a hold of a public person nowadays.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
just like, I don't need to go out of my way to make myself more available.
right.
um, and yeah, I don't know. I kind of like the idea of just kind of being an unknown figure
Fair
in the
enough.
world of the web.
The dark brooding figure in the corner. That's you. That's Anthony.
All right. So we've touched on this a few times. The Riceboy Sleeps, obviously a very personal film for you. How did writing this differ from your first feature, Daughter?
Well, the difference was when I was writing Daughter, it was an exercise. I wrote it as a one-act play that I wanted to develop with like one of my producing partners, Brian Demore,
Mm.
and yeah, I was just trying to get better as a writer, and I just started writing this thing that I just felt like was an easy two-hander that I could put up. And then once I finished writing this sort of like 60-page piece, we just kind of looked at it, because I'd been wanting to make a film for a while, and we just looked at it and thought, you know, we could raise a little bit of money, write a few more pages, and just shoot it, and then let's just see if I can actually write, direct, and edit something together that has a cohesive beginning, middle, and an end. And so we did that, and it was that sort of kind of just like a spontaneous in a way. And we got my friends together. It was just a lot of friends and family getting together, borrowing some locations, and we shot it in 12 days. And it was insane, but it was with this kind of attitude of like, it's an exercise
Mm-hmm.
to see if it would work. And then that somehow ended up being my first film. And then I thought, oh, okay, that gave me like just enough confidence to go, okay, let's like really try and make a movie. Let's actually have the intention of writing a script that I'm going to shoot. And so I just kind of blocked everything else out and just got to writing. And it was a painful experience, because I think when you do anything creative, it's important to have a sense of freedom and an ease. This was not easy, and there was nothing freeing about it. I had this like pressure on me that that was largely put on myself, of I'm going to make a movie and I'm going to make it be good, and that's a terrible
Pressure.
to put on yourself when you're writing something. But I wrote it fairly fast. I wrote it in just a few months, and I guess there was enough working about it that we were able to secure some financing quite early on, and then the rest was the process of making a movie.
But I mean, it's got to be somewhat different. I mean, your process was obviously very different between the two,
Mm-hmm.
but you in Father, because I don't know, are you a father now personally?
I'm not. No.
Okay, so you're reading it from a perspective of something you don't personally know, but this for Riceboy, it was like, this is like almost you, right? It's kind of the experiences that you grew up with. That must have been just in the journey in itself. Must have been hard for you.
It was uncomfortable at times. It was scary at times, but it was also beautiful and cathartic a lot of the times, because it forced me to think about my own identity, the way I've treated myself and treated others, and my relationship with my parents, my relationship to my racial identity, my cultural identity, and it invited just a lot of great, difficult conversations with my family, with my mother. So it was, it was life-changing. It was really life-changing working on this film.
It's good. I mean, you could feel it from the characters right? Like these were characters that you had experience with, as you mentioned already about some of the things that you found comedic, right? But we talked a little bit about this earlier, but you literally put your pedal to the metal with the amount of heavy emotions in this film, from having a super powerful mom to sexism at work to racism to dealing with suicide and death and dying. How like, you know, these are things that not everybody has. Not some people haven't even seen one, and we've seen movies where they'll have one of those lines to get through in a movie. You put so much dread into a movie. By the way, we love dread on this podcast. So, like your comment earlier, like by the time I got to halfway through the movie, I wasn't so in love with the dread, but I was literally crying from halfway through the movie to the entire end and going through different levels of crying. You know, how does a family deal with all of that stress and I guess last of a better word, dread?
I don't all families
No, not everybody deals. Unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, I haven't had to deal with racism. Yeah. But so I mean, that's a big one in itself. Some people haven't had suicide to deal with in their life. You know, like this is big topics, and you did it so well.
I mean, I just feel like it's all such a big part. It's all part of life, and whether one's experienced it at an early age or at a later age, I do think it's. I mean, everything that happens in the film, it's all pretty common stuff, I find. Some of it's happened to me personally, some of it's happened to people around me. But at the same time, I didn't want to give too much emphasis on just like, I didn't want to show these characters as like being victims of these things.
Right.
But just so like, this was just a part of life.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, I got bullied, I got teased quite a bit. But I don't consider myself a victim of racism. While I experienced racist situations, I guess really what I was trying to say is, this was just part of the upbringing, and it informed and shaped who I eventually became as an adult. And it's that journey that I was more curious about exploring, opposed to like, the impact of how difficult life was for, immigrants at that time. It was difficult, but like life is difficult for non-immigrants as well. And so I don't know. It's like people have been saying these things now to me, and it's making me, think, oh, maybe it is a lot of heavy stuff, but I never tried to do it with a heavy hand.
Yeah. I think because the characters you developed were so well developed, like you did such a good job of crafting these characters that we fell in love with so early and just carried through with them. It's like every time something bad happens to them, it's like we feel it more. Do you know what I mean? Like there's a difference between when you see a really badly developed character, something bad happens to him in let's say somebody else's terrible movie, and then something happens to them, you're kind of like, okay, whatever, right? But I think that goes to say about you can take this journey with this person because we're already invested in them, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was the hope. Yeah.
Yeah, you did.
And try to see try and see go on these journey with these characters and see where they end up, and ultimately they do overcome all these things.
Yeah. Let's talk about endings for you.
Yeah.
There's not very many directors who can write perfect endings. So far I've only seen 2 of your films, and both of them had perfect endings.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, like literally I don't even want to tell you how many movies we watch a week on average. Like we seriously watch a ton of movies. And I would say at least 15% of the time we see a film, the ending can destroy the entire movie. But you just, you put an ending and a cap on Riceboy that it was just the only way you could have done it. So I know you kind of already said it, that you want to make sure it's got all 3 pieces to the film, but do you spend extra time on that ending to say, yeah, that is it, that's the perfect ending?
I had a lot of different endings. There's been very many variations of that, but then once that story that she tells Simon, the character Simon, when that made it into the script, and when I realized the characters would end up where they end up physically by the end of the movie, I thought, oh, that's what it is. And then I wrote it, and I wrote this like really like beautiful narration over it, and we did this table read, and all my friends went like, amazing ending, cut that narration.
Well,
They're like, it was like, cut the narration and you've got a beautiful ending. And I was like, like when you're typing and reading,
Yeah.
you're like, you it's hard to know, like, is this enough? Like, is this gonna just having a visual, is it gonna give the audience, the impact that I want them to have? And my team all went like, no, just leave that.
Yes.
That's the last image that we need to see of them.
I think
And
sometimes
so,
directors put they think that the audience isn't smart enough to sometimes see their vision. So yeah, kudos to you for taking influence in creating that perfect ending.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, well, so do we. How was it to go to Korea for the final act of this film? Like, was that something that you had dreamed up from the beginning, or was it like as the film opened up, it was kind of just flowed there? Or
well, the idea from day one was that I wanted to make a story about a mother and son who are immigrants in Canada who ultimately go back to their hometown or to their homeland. So that town, all the Korea stuff where it's shot, that's actually where my grandfather's from. That he was born and raised there.
Wow.
And so that town is inhabited by all my relatives still to this day.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and that that mountain and the gravesite, that's my great grandfather's, and so I had gone there as a kid. I went there back in '99 and 2004 as a young man, and I had a similar sort of emotional experience. And so the idea was to go back to that part of the world. And so when I went and did location scouting there, and I took a bunch of pictures, I sent them back, and everyone just went like, oh, wow, like, we gotta go and shoot there. But then the actual logistics of doing that during a pandemic was very difficult. It almost didn't happen many times.
Wow.
We almost couldn't get our film cameras shipped over there, and we had a digital camera on standby, just like a day before we went to camera. So
Whoa.
It was all very difficult, but it all worked out.
Yeah, making a film is stressful to begin with, but the fact that you're trying to do it during a pandemic, that must have been hard.
It was. I don't ever want to do that again. If there's another pandemic as bad as it was, I'll just wait. I'll wait it out.
It was that hard, eh?
It's just, you have so many things going against you when you're trying to make a film, especially when it's a lower budget film.
Yeah.
When you have no contingency money for having to get shut down for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And so, like, essentially, if you get shut down because of COVID, like, it was like, for us, it's like, well, I now need to like make a new movie that I have to rewrite the script and make another movie that allows me to shoot it in the time and money we have. And so with that kind of pressure, is to add that on, it's the risk is too great. But we got lucky a gazillion times. It was like, no exaggeration, this took multiple miracles to get to this point.
Wow. I can't imagine. And it's funny, you're not the only person that said that about the pandemic. It's just like, well, obviously somebody up there or down there, wherever you believe, up or down, they wanted that film to be made. So it's kudos.
Yeah, I mean, I one day, I like, I want to get a bunch of filmmakers together and just talk to them about like, so how did you do it during the pandemic? Like, what did you go through? What was it like for you? Like,
Yeah.
I'm just so curious. Like,
Yeah.
I know what it was like for us, and I'm going, like, how the hell is everyone else doing this?
Yeah.
Like, just because it seemed so impossible.
You should, because you're so close, just walk down to the VIF offices and just say to them, why don't you do a panel discussion? I mean, must have about 20 directors sitting around in Vancouver right now. Let's do a panel discussion on it.
We should. That's actually not a bad idea.
Right?
We should have a panel about being
Filming during
low budget
Yeah.
indie filmmakers during the pandemic.
Yeah.
You got VIF's number, right? Just call them.
Yeah, I know a couple people there I could call. Yeah.
Yeah,
There you go.
that's good. I want to. We might show up to that panel and ask some more tougher questions. So, your dialogue in this was so real and natural. I just got to say, and it's interesting because now you're the what a Renaissance man. You can pretty much do everything. Do you see you're going to continue to do the whole writing and directing, or can you see yourself at one point spending more time on either directing or writing? And how would that feel? Like, how do you think it would feel to be, because you are a writer also, be a writer and have someone else direct your stuff, or direct, because you haven't done this yet that I know of, directed somebody else's work?
I am very open to directing other people's work, and I'm quite familiar with that process because I did so much theater.
Yes.
And I was doing pre-existing material, and so, and plus I was an acting teacher for a long time, and so when teaching acting classes, I was using all plays, primarily plays, and so I've read thousands of plays, and I'm just so like I've grown very accustomed to taking pre-existing written material and then having your own interpretation of it. So that is a process that I really, really love and miss, frankly. And so there's been conversations about me possibly doing things that I'm not writing myself, and because as a writer, I do feel my limitations. And it's such a lengthy process to write, and so because I love filming and I love directing, I could very well see myself doing stuff I didn't write. But I don't think I'll write stuff that other people direct, because if I don't want to direct it, it's probably because it's not very good. And I don't want something bad out there that I've written, and then if it's actually good, then I don't want to give that away. Like
I don't blame you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, the way I've been describing it is like, if there's a story that I'm passionate about, I'm in, and however I can be of service to that, that's what I'll do.
Yeah, I get it.
So I'm not too strict about like having to do this and that.
But it's interesting because your commentary certainly around that was more from an actor's standpoint, where it's like, oh yeah, I've done so many of this, but as an actor, you haven't necessarily had to have that experience of having the writer at your heels while you're doing the direction, right?
Well, no, I like directing theater.
Yeah, no. Oh, okay. So also directing theater. Gotcha.
Yeah,
okay,
I did. I've directed about a dozen plays, and they were not plays I wrote.
Oh, good. And were the writers still alive, or are they like films that, or
a couple of them?
Were they at your biting at your heels, or?
No. I don't think I would do it if I felt like the writer was someone who's going to be biting at my heels. I'd have to feel like we're partners in this process.
Yeah.
And I have to be respectful to that person, and vice versa. Otherwise, why would I do it?
Yeah.
For money, but.
Well, yeah, money. That's the one, right? And obviously, to write it and direct it takes a heck of a lot more time, right?
Yeah, it does. But I think that the thing that's so beautiful about writing and directing is, like, you can see it with the work that's out there, of the great writer-directors out there. You see their work, and you're like, that is undeniably that individual's piece of work. And so. I mean, I'd like to do as much of that as possible. I'll do it until I feel like I've maxed out my writing ability.
Nice.
So, what's next for Riceboy Sleeps? Any more festivals on the horizon, or?
There's a lot of festivals on the horizon.
Yeah.
Ones that I can
Not tell us
talk about.
Not yet.
Right.
Okay, fair.
There's
fair.
a couple that I can talk about. We'll be after VIF. We're going to Busan in South Korea
Oh wow.
Right on.
for our international premiere.
Are you going?
I will be going. Yeah.
Nice.
Cool.
I have the city of Busan has a special place in my heart. So I'll definitely be going and spending some time there.
Are you taking
And
a
then-
train to Busan?
No, not me. Some of the other producers are. No train for me. I've taken that train many times, and no zombies.
Nice.
Yeah, just snacks. Yeah,
So you're going to Busan? Where else?
and then there's the film's going to be at Sudbury next or whenever that's happening. It's also it'll be playing at Windsor.
Oh.
And we'll be at the Real Asian Film Festival in Toronto. And what else can I say? I think that's about as
I thought you were
much as
allowed
I
to
can
say.
Yeah.
Can you say
Fair
how
enough.
many others that you're not allowed to say? Like 72 others that I can't say.
Not 72, but there's a handful
At least 70.
so far. 71.
Nice. Now you mentioned that TIFF is now going to open doors. Is it also other than the actual getting more festivals? But is it in what other way has that helped to open more doors for you, or changed your career's direction?
Oh, I mean the number of people that have found out about this film in the States.
Ah,
You know, I have an agent now in LA.
nice.
I'm speaking with management companies, there's production companies that I've been speaking with. So it's whether I don't know what direction I'm going to go in, but I've spent my whole career in complete darkness, absolute in obscurity, just doing these little projects by myself with no one knowing, and then no one really even caring about it after fact. Now it feels like, oh, there's other people that could be of some help in getting things made. So it's exciting. Yeah, we'll see. I have no idea. This is all so new, but it has opened a lot of doors that whether I take them or not, that they've presented themselves. So
Sounds like there may be a Wikipedia page in your future then.
somebody made one actually recently.
Oh, did they?
I think, yeah. I think somebody very recently made a Wikipedia page, and I was like, damn it, I've my privacy's broken.
Nice. Awesome. So, we have one more question for you, for our formal questions for you. Do you have anything else now in the works? Or are you just now still too busy and focused on this project that you haven't had time to start planning your next project?
Well, I have been writing quite a bit. Well, at least prior to the TIFF announcements, there's a couple of months that I had where we're just kind of waiting, and I was losing my mind at a rapid pace that I figured I should probably devote some of my energy into the next film in case nothing comes out of this and I'm back to square one. And so I just started writing a little while ago, and unfortunately I haven't been able to do much writing the last few weeks. But yeah, there is something in the works that I'm feeling pretty passionate about. So funny. It has to do. It's inspired by what inspired this film was a lot of these horrible random acts of violence towards Asian Americans during the pandemic era,
And Canadians, actually.
and Canadians as well. And while I was making Riceboy Sleeps, I would read about these things that were happening, and it was really hard to not feel something. It was really hard to just forget about them.
Yep.
And just imagining, my mother who's in her 60s, I have a little sister and her baby who now live in, Northern California in the States. Like, just feels so so personal, and it felt like such an immediate threat to me and my family that I thought, if I try to write a love story, I try to write a comedy, and and it's like, fuck.
It's coming back to heavy gas
Yeah.
pedal on the drama.
Oh God, if I'm privileged enough to be able to make another film, I feel like I have to touch on this thing that it seems to be such an important issue to address in today's society, and so I don't know. I tried to write a comedy about it, and then it wasn't going so well.
It still comes up sounding like dread.
Yeah.
You just have a natural spin.
We'll see. I'm trying to make it as entertaining as possible while not trying to make light of.
Yeah,
events.
I mean that's a tough balance, right? Yeah, and it's funny.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not funny that you say that, but I have a really, really good friend of mine who personally was victimized twice during the pandemic. Yeah, she's Chinese, and she's in her mid-50s. And one time she was spit on, and the other time somebody literally cold cocked her in the face. And then
Wow.
said, "Why don't you go back to your country?" And she was born here, so it's like, I'm sorry, I want you to make that movie. I really want you to make that movie. It's important.
And there's so many examples of those types of things that are going on in North America, even now. And how do you, the challenge right now is you put those two instances, just what you described, you put that into a movie, and that's so heavy.
Yeah.
And that is heavy enough that you could carry the rest of the movie just on that one event. But so yeah, right now I guess I'm just trying to gather as much info as I can and carve a story that doesn't just drag the audience through 2 hours of absolute racism hell, but that it's it does say something bigger, more nuanced than just violence towards Asian people.
Well, I'm sure you'll write the perfect ending for it, because so far you're 2 out of 2.
Oh, pressure's on.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
No more pressure on you. But
oh God, this next one's gonna have the worst ending possible, and I'm gonna blame you for it.
We will call you out.
That's right. We are called Film Rage, so if it's terrible, we're gonna tell you. So, it has been a great pleasure to have you on. We really can't thank you enough. Now, is there anything that we either haven't talked about, or we haven't asked you, or something that you want to leave our listeners with a message, or any words of wisdom from Anthony from all the way from Vancouver, or as we say, the northern part of Hollywood South?
I find Asian communities in Canada who I feel like are the target demographic for this film. I mean, I think it's universal enough that everyone can enjoy it, but the people that I feel like would really, really feel things on a deeper level are the Asian immigrant communities in North America. But a lot of them, especially of the older generation, they don't really go out to the movies that much, and they're not really in tune with film festivals. So I feel like a lot of those people, a lot of those communities just don't get a chance to see this film during the festival circuit. So if there's any way that anyone who's listening to this, anyone who's aware of this movie playing in Calgary or any other city in Canada these next couple months, please just try to just share the word with the Asian Canadian communities and encourage people to see it, and hopefully it can allow them to feel like there's a film that's made that represents them, that is about them, that honors them. And if you don't like it, you can write nasty words on my Instagram page.
And what is that Instagram page? You going to share it with our listeners?
Hold on, I gotta look it up. I forget what it is.
That's okay.
I kind of expected.
It's at Anthony Shim.
There you go.
It's so hard to remember.
Yeah, that's literally the hardest one for people to remember. There's no hyphen or dot or.
No, nothing. I recently made my 4th post. I'm still learning.
I think we followed you, so I was noticing that. You need to get that. This is what's going to help get you more watchers of the film is by posting a 5th or a 6th post on your Instagram.
It's so time consuming. Instagram takes up so much time and energy.
Yeah, it's true.
It took me,
Twitter's
like-
worse, by the
Yeah.
way. So if you're on
Oh,
Twitter,
I don't go near that. That just seems,
You and me both, mister.
yeah, that seems like a dangerous way to spend your day. So,
well, again, thanks so much for being on our show.
And
thank you guys. Yeah.
and where's this film playing in Calgary here, Jim?
Well, let me tell you. So if you have not bought tickets yet, because this show's being broadcast. What day is this? 20. We're hitting festival season, so we're going to be not sleeping much. So it's now the 22nd. Riceboy Sleeps is going to be playing at SIF on September 27th at 4:30 p.m. at Eau Claire Market in Cineplex, and September 30th at 8 p.m. at Eau Claire Cinemas as well. So for anybody listening and you haven't bought tickets, this is a must-see for anybody, be them Korean or non-Korean. So again, thank you. Find us on social media at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Film Rage YYC. Check out everything Film Rage at filmrageyyc.com. Please comment, like, and subscribe, and send us an email to filmragecalgary@gmail.com. This has been a very, very special episode of Verbal Masturbation during SIF Calgary, where you can find out everything at sifcalgary.com. Until next time, rage on.
Rage on.